I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice. With your hosts, Keith Varney.
Robot Keith Varney.
Out of practice.
Non-robot Mike Indeglio.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
Who's excited for the snowstorm? This guy.
We've already got about an inch on the ground, baby.
Woo!
Out of practice.
And welcome to the Out of Practice Podcast, a weekly podcast in which I'm Keith, and my buddy, Mike, we discuss David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice.
We do.
This week is we are really in momentous times for The Practice because we are talking about Season 7, Episode 21, which aired on May 5th, 2003. We're going to talk about all the regular stuff, but I'd like to point out that this episode and the season finale aired on the same night. So if you're in real life, in May of 2003, you're watching these back to back, and a little behind the scenes, we were pretty sure at this point they getting canceled. So we were expecting this probably to be the last evening of The Practice. Turns out, spoiler alert, it didn't. But we were definitely experiencing it.
Should it have?
Way.
Different question.
Oh, well, you're going to have to answer that for yourself, Mr. Indeglio.
Wait, so is this the season finale?
Next episode is the season
so
finale.
they knew,
but
so
they
you're
aired
saying they
back
were...
to back.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So I started watching this thinking that this was the penultimate episode of the series.
The final 2 hours of
final
Bobby.
2 hours. And of course, this episode's called Baby Love.
Baby love, my baby love. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It was unfortunately it's not a musical like we were hoping it might be. So anyway, so in the real world here, we're recording this on January 28th, 2022 here in the Eastern Corridor. We're supposed to get a big old storm.
Well, big
tomorrow.
Actually it has increased. Is it not tomorrow? I guess we're not that far from each other, but what I'm reading now is that it's going to take a little break right here, and then kind of around mid-afternoon through tomorrow morning is when so we're looking at 6 to 8 here is at last check. What about you?
Yeah, that I was looking at it earlier. It says 4 to 8 is the most likely scenario, but the next two most likely scenarios are more than that.
Oh, okay.
Which add up to more than. We're doing some analytics here on the.
Well, they're saying
podcast.
that more western, but I don't know. You know what? Who knows? It is good. I have to take my car out one way or the other.
I hope we get some snow. It's
coming down
super
here.
Fun.
I mean, we're in a full snowstorm right now.
We got a little bit this morning, but it stopped now and it sort of melted off. So it's probably not going to start until the evening. We hope so because we have to go somewhere.
A little housekeeping real quick, Keith, I want to bring up, as it was mentioned but on some of our emails, but I wanted to say it out. So when we do the show, we're using Skype to do the show. And
we are.
So what I hear from Keith is generally not what he's recording. So it's hard to diagnose if there are audio issues. The past 2 weeks, we've had some stuff. We record a 2-hour podcast, so there's only so much we can do to fix issues after the fact. So it has not gone unrecognized. We just kind of draw a line as to what's worth it. And I think over the 12 years we've been doing the show, we've had to re-record probably 4 times, and it is like pulling teeth when we've got to do that.
It's not good. If you wondered why our pilot was so bad,
It's because we did it like 3 times.
Our like general badness, we actually recorded it a second time because what was it? We didn't record something.
We hadn't fine-tuned the SpaceX just yet.
Yes.
The streamlined process had not been
and when are we looking to? I mean, we're going into the last season.
Well, let's put it this way: they were able to design, launch, and drive and park these the Webb telescope 1 million miles from Earth before we figured out our crap.
No question, and never will. All right, so I think let us jump into some folks giving us crap about our crap in a segment we call Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas.
Filings and some penis.
Filings and some penis, indeed. Well, let me tell you, we where is it? We heard from our good friend and moderator Phoenix Cage, who had some stuff to say in a window that I can't quite find right now. Ah, there it is. Haha, good for me. He said, so we're losing the video, which means no more cat content, yet for some reason the sports ball segment lives on. No, I mean, you're still going to get cat content. It's just have to be put up on Instagram. But yes, the sports ball segment will live on if for no other reason than it bugs you. Because, I'm just that type of a guy. And I find it interesting. You know what? I'm also, I'm a podcaster. I find stupid things interesting. But guess what? So moderator Phoenix is not the only person who reached out to us this week. Because guess what? We heard from good friend and friend of the show, the real Ray Abruzzo, who talked about he loved being a part of this show and shared a little Instagram thing. He was in the teaser, so it's great to hear from the real Ray Abruzzo. And I thank you so much for at least checking out some of the stuff on Instagram. And it's been nice to hear from the cast members that we've heard from that they really did have a good experience on the show. And and Ray did more than 40 episodes.
We have this is great, actually. We have an on-air, real-time filing and subpoena from my mom.
Oh, my God. Really?
Your mom generally writes in, but my mom, I got this text just now. Haven't read it yet. I don't think it pertains to our show, but here we are. Hi, Mike. I should mention, I text my mom frequently. She just never texts back. So this is a treat for me.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Hi, Mike. Ready for the snow? ? Well, Mom, it's already snowing quite a bit, but all right. Is Jen working today or tonight? Tonight. It's supposed to get bad tonight. Okay, I'm going. Straightening up a bit. I did bring my greens and beans, so come for dinner.
Well,
Thanks,
there
Mom.
you go.
Hey.
Okay. A little window into Mike's,
She texts me back. She made me greens
nice.
and beans.
My mother texts me primarily about the Bruins, so we will frequently text our way through the Bruins games, which is always fun. All right. Well, if you are not our mother, or maybe you are our mother, how would they communicate with us, Mike?
Keith, very easy to do so. They can write us at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on the social media at outofpractice. Podcast.
Otherwise, it won't get to us. Nailed it. Oh my God. We are so good at this. You know what else we're really good about? We're good about hopping into time machines to take opportunities to talk more about ourselves in a segment we call
This Day in the Basement.
So we are, of course, talking about May 5th, the year 2003. Mike, what were you up to?
Keith, one thing our podcast has been is, well, all over the place. But there have been moments, I think the term we have coined is synchronicity.
Synchronicity, yep.
And this is another one that I think is fun, and it shows a little of then and now.
Oh,
so,
do tell.
I've talked quite a bit on the show about this ska band I used to be in back in high school. And even though that band had broken up, I always kept
Martian Flats 49.
surprisingly close each time. So Space 8 Mafia. So even though that had broken up, I still kept an affinity for the music out of nostalgia. And there was a few bands I tracked, as there were some that kind of kept it all together. So one of those was one of my favorite bands originally, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And most people probably have a touch tone with them from the 90s with that song that was like, I never had to knock on wood, but I know someone who did. And made me wonder if I should. That's the impression that I get. You should.
That's a YouTube strike.
I tried to change the lyrics. Anyway, but nonetheless, they were one of those bands that just like stayed together forever. However, they had this moment where they broke up in around. It was definitely 2003. I think it was. Might have been It was around this time, and I remember feeling kind of sad when I read that they had broken up. Even though I wasn't really following them closely, but it was just like it felt like it had closed a chapter on sort of my. It was 2003 for sure. On my nostalgia and like that period in my life. Years later, actually only a couple years later, they got back together, and they have been together, Keith, since 2004. They got back together, and they've been together again all the way up until last night.
No.
I got a text from a friend who sent me a link to an article, and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones finally hung it up. And I started to get that same feeling that I got way back in 2003 of like hearkening back to like my ska days and then how that was a long time ago and is over. However, the twist, the perfect 2022 twist is it's not just like a bunch of friends who outgrew it and finally decided to like, hang it up.
Retire. Right.
No, it turns out the lead singer is an anti-vaxxer who started posting all of his anti-vax stuff, and the band was like, yeah, no, we don't want to be associated with that, so peace. So as it could have been a beautiful story for This Day in the Basement, but no, 2022 said, you don't get that. It's got to be about this other bullshit.
Another big band that was happening, I don't know if it was Journey or one of like the classic, it wasn't Queen, I think it was Journey, that I obviously they didn't because they performed on New Year's, but I had heard that was an issue in the whole like Trump January 6th of it all. Well, luckily, Mike, if we ever start a band and break up, it will be purely because we detest each other as people and not because of our political views. So,
well, because there's only so many songs about Star Trek toys one can write.
You say that. You've
been doing it for Christmas for nay on 25 years.
Well, this is going entirely off topic, but I had an opportunity brought to me about an old musical that I wrote about football that I hadn't looked at or thought of in at least 5 years. And I started writing it when I was like 25. And you asked the question, well, how many songs could you possibly write about football? And I looked back into the material, and I have demos and songs written for, I think, easily 3 complete musicals worth of music written for that show. All 3 of those musicals are failures, but I definitely wrote enough football music.
What's funny about that show that we'll, I guess, keep vague because I don't want to.
It's called Elway
okay.
The musical.
So I always felt some of your best music, just as far as like musical theater, was in that show. But the problem I always saw for you commercially was I'd be like, well, how big is it? And you're like, yeah, like 60 people.
Well, no, I mean it was designed to be like a big splashy show, not 60 people, but
no, I'm being hyperbolic. Hyperbolic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gonna do a show about the NFL, it can't really be like a 6-person like guitar strummer. It's but it failed for lots of different reasons. But who knows? Maybe I'll send out this.
Because in this woke culture, Keith, I feel like there's no song that addresses the concussion protocols. It's not that the musical was a failure, Keith. It's just been in the blue tent for quite a while.
It's just that I forgot to write it. Okay, so here we are. Let's talk about
Keith. Fine, I'll be in it. I'll be in it.
Weren't you in it? Didn't you do a reading or two of that over the years?
If you've written a musical, I've done a reading of it.
There it is. Okay, so my time in the basement, and this is a little bit of a teaser for next week, because diving back into the emails, I found an email written on this night about this.
About
but
the practice?
I will save it for next week. But I also found something else in that email, and I was talking about my job at the time, which was working at the NYU School of Medicine. And at that point, I was a temp, and I was feeling like I wasn't being paid enough. And I was about to ask for my first raise. First time I directly asked for a raise, and I think I was making $16 an hour at that point, which, for a temp job in 2003 wasn't that bad. But I was going to, I think I might have started at 12 and then asked to get to 16. That's probably what I did. But I was able to ask for raises from my boss there. And I was like, that was like the most adult thing I've ever done. But I also was, I didn't have any food. So it was living and that's a decent amount of money. But back in New York City, I was literally living on, I would buy a couple pounds of pasta and a stick of butter and salt. And that is all I could literally eat for the week. So, I was hanging on by a thread, but I happily, because of the kick-ass boss I had there, was able to get a raise and be able to feed myself and eventually cut the temp agency out of the equation. All right. Well, I think we have some good hot cat content right now, because Charlie is on his window here and is an endless battle right now that he wants to go out and it's freezing. And I don't want to do the podcast like with my teeth chattering, but he's now just banging his paw against the window over and over again. You can probably hear it.
So my one cat, Keith, has a double cat contact for you this week.
Yeah.
One, our little cat Tuxie has learned to open cabinets like a human being. He uses the handle and he pulls it open. I had to go and purchase, my wife and I do not have children. I had to go and purchase child locks to lock the cabinets, because the cat is, he likes to gorge. Also,
he knows where the food is too.
Yeah, he opens the food, goes in there, lays in there, and then just eats at whim. So he doesn't have to get up from a nap to eat. So I locked it.
Amazing.
Also, speaking of direct opposites, I also was in sheer poverty back in 2003, and this time in my life I'm not. And I just recently purchased an OLED television to move up technology, and the cats don't know how to handle it, because the resolution and deep blacks present a picture so realistic that the cats are trying to jump into the screen, to which I tell them, no, I will kill you before I let you destroy my new television.
Well, you mounted it up pretty high, so that's...
Yeah, but they're cats.
That's good. But the technological arms race continues. I had the lead for about 6 months, and now I'm behind again. All right, well...
The technological arms race. That gave me a giggle.
I mean, come on, like it's not.
It's just the size race. All this time, we've had the same exact television. You just had 10 extra inches on me.
Obviously. So when has that not been true?
Well, in every other case.
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Okay, folks, here we are. May 5th, 2003. We're listening to Get Busy. Sean Paul. I don't know if I'm not familiar with this one, but here we are. It's a bop. I like it. Excuse me. The cover of the Burlington Free Press talked about, excuse me, I'm dying.
You all right, buddy?
Crowded CVU waits for vote on upgrades. Now, CVU was sort of the sister high school to my high school, which, at my age and a couple years after, there was a huge population bubble with the kids. So when I was there, we were super overcrowded in the classrooms, and all the schools had to build additions and hire more teachers. And I had like 35 kids in my 3rd grade class. It was craziness. So they were all trying to pass these budget resolutions to get it be bigger. Now it's quite the opposite, where there's hardly any kids there. So now all of the big stuff they put in for my generation is sitting dormant. But that's what was happening. The top movie was X2, which I read the first time, which took in $85 million, which beat out Star Wars Episode 2, which was the biggest opening. But in my head, I didn't realize that was the X-Men movie. I thought it was Triple X2, the Vin Diesel franchise. And I'm like, that took in $85 million? That beats Star Wars? That's crazy. That makes no sense. But now that I realize that it's the X-Men, that makes sense. That was the best of the first trilogy of X-Men movies, I think. So there it is. I think I saw that one in theaters, and I enjoyed it. You want to know what else I enjoy? A little segment that everybody hates except for me, called
It's time for sports ball.
The Philadelphia Hockey Flyers dropped a second-round series to the... Not to the Flyers. 4 games to 2. I think it was Ottawa, finishing with a 5-1 loss in Philly. The aging Flyers were led by Jeremy Roenick, Mark Recchi, Keith Primo, with Vermonter John LeClaire only playing 35 games due to injuries. That didn't go well, but neither did the Flyers' season. That was a tough time because they were starting to age out a little bit, and even Johnny LeClaire, the Vermont player that we are big fans of, was starting to slow down a little bit in the knees. But you know what it's time for?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
Okay, well, here we are. Season 7, episode 21. And we got some writers, and we got a director. Our director is Jeannot Soir, a long-term director on The Practice. But this episode was written by 3 different writers, including, of course, David E. Kelley, but also Bill Shea, who we have not seen had not been credited on the show yet. He also wrote on Family Law, Shark, Bull, and Franklin and Bash. And producer Pamela J. Wisne, Wisne, could be wine with a silent S, but I'm going to go with Wisne. This is her only writing credit. However, she was a producer on 132 episodes of The Practice, which leaves us with only one important thing to do. I found it!
What is that supposed to mean?
What's your problem?
Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What?
What?
What does Mike think's gonna happen?
I'm dying.
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Keith, got an idea here. I've been giving the show a lot of benefit of the doubt every time, but this time, forget it. No benefit of the doubt. I think they're gonna have the Lindsay character jump the shark this time. Baby love.
Okay.
Very plain and simple prediction. Bobby and Lindsay, they're clearly splitting up. Bobby's got feelings for this other lady. He's hooking up with her. They've been having Lindsay go slightly nuts. They could have a mutual parting, right? They could just decide to co-parent, but no. Lindsay Dole is going to kidnap Bobby Jr.
Whoa!
And this episode, the next 2 episodes are a season finale to be continued join-up of Bobby, the heroic search for Bobby Jr., and Lindsay, the evil mother who kidnapped him and fled.
Whoa! That is both entertaining and in keeping with how they've treated the character so far, so why wouldn't that happen?
Right? It's not as ridiculous as it sounds.
I mean, you know, look, she's had a journey, let's say. All right, well, folks, is Mike right? It's time to find out by switching over to your podcasting service of choice and listening to us listen to the episode. We'll be back here on the YouTubes for the Oopsies.
We are back, baby. Yeah, we are.
We are indeed. We have just watched The Practice Season 7, Episode 21, Baby Love. So lots of things have happened, perhaps some new love in the air, but let's figure out how Mike's going to describe it in a segment we call
2, 3, 4. Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened on the show. Segment.
Guys, Eugene and Jamie, love blossoming. They've got to defend a pregnant lady who may be a little infidelizing. Turns out she is, but it doesn't matter because she's got a lot of money and she's out of prison. Bobby and Lindsay are kaputs. And in the other case, Jimmy takes Claire under his wing and she does some zealing and she gets lots of money for Wheelchair Girl.
Okay, great. Now do it again, but
that's how she's
faster.
credited, right? That's how she's credited.
Yeah, that's exactly how she's credited.
Eleanor butts in. Eugene and Stringer both win. Claire Wyatt steps up.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there it is. I think actually you got all three plot points in there. So congratulations on that. You know what it's time for, Mike?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David E. Kelly Productions, proudly present
Oopsie.
the Oopsies! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the Oopsies?
Well, Jackie, they're a fake awards show that begins with every time. I think maybe you've got it this time.
Yeah, it breaks my heart and my vocal cords every time I listen to it. Do you know, Keith? Yes, you want Eugene. Yes, you want Eugene. Yeah, you want Jamie. They both could win, but I think it's time we say Claire gets her first most valuable lawyer. It's maybe not valuable. You could compare it to her life wasn't on the line, but the rest of her life without legs was. And I don't mean that as flippantly as that sounded coming out of my mouth, but it's true. Like they said, they tried to use their poverty against them, and Claire was able to make that right. Somehow. And it's a maybe look, that pebble will have ripples for that young woman. And it was an injustice that I think she was fighting a systemic injustice rather than just one singular case. And so I say that Claire Wyatt does it.
And you know what? I tell you what, you just won your case. I was 100% going to go with Jamie or Eugene, but I think you tugged on my heartstrings. Your closing swayed this jury.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm going to give it to Claire too. So congratulations, Claire Wyatt, on your first MVL. All right, folks, you know what it's time for.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck. First entry on your
I forgot the dance.
Way to go. But you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor on the episode.
That hurt I hurt myself doing that today.
Yeah. Well, we're podcasting while old. It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. I always apologize. I don't have the IMDb pulled up, so I don't know the actress's name. The mother of the young daughter was very great in this episode.
Lisa Renee Pitts. Yep. She was.
But I also thought that our pregnant defendant was very good as well.
Mm-hmm. Brenda James.
You know what? I'm going to go with actually, I think my first instinct, because for the same reason, limited scene work, but I think the response to a lot of her explanation of the stakes, as we were talking about just in MVL, the stakes were in some ways seemed lighter than the A case, but in this actress's performance, I think that the stakes were raised for me. And so if you could say her name again.
Lisa Renee Pitts.
Lisa Renee Pitts, I think, raised the stakes for me and maybe in potentially an underwritten arc. So I'm going to go with that for Best Guest Actor.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think she did all of that and did a great job. I think I'm going to split C with you on this and give it to Brenda James because she was interesting and compelling, and I really like the movie Slither. So congratulations, Brenda James and Lisa Renee James on your Best Guest Actor. Oopsies, where the heck is my soundboard? There it is. Now it's time for everyone's favorite crying segment.
You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show.
So many great performances this week. So many great performances. Shout out to Steve Harris, always excellent. Special shout out to, even though she was just butting in, Cameron, but a specific special shout out to Kelly Williams, who once again, they've written her shit every which way, but consistent. And this week, she got to play a very reasoned, articulate, the Lindsay I know and thought the character was from the very beginning, made a triumphant return, and she performed it exactly how I think she probably wanted to be Lindsay the whole time. So, great shout out. But I think this week for me, and of course, actress who plays Claire Wyatt, great performance.
Right, Kyler Lee.
Kyler, right? I'm trying. There's so many great actresses. But for me, it's Jessica Capshaw this week again. I thought that to come from that last arc and somehow make her crush on Eugene be confident, be articulated, be performed believably, but also still perform all of the legalese between the two of them that we love about the show so directly and so confidently. I just thought, and for all the reasons I expounded on in the episode proper, this was a character that had an uphill battle from the beginning, because the first question I asked, and I think a lot of viewers watched when you saw her enter the series, was why? And she has carved out such an amazing space for herself under difficult circumstances. And yeah, we could debate the case and whether we liked it or whether we thought they did enough with it and whether they should even be doing all of this personal drama stuff. But I think she has played it remarkably consistently and powerfully and confidently. I keep saying the word confident. And so, Jessica Capshaw, once again, I'm giving my oopsie for.
No, I agree with you. The character has turned out to be much more interesting than it was portrayed at the outset. And Jessica Capshaw, we know now, having seen her work on Grey's Anatomy and this other thing, has a lot going on. And we're seeing that through the character. And, the weird sort of like old-timey, like will they, won't they courtship, which feels almost like a 40s movie. There's chemistry there. And I think that's kind of fun. So congratulations, Jessica Capshaw, on your Best Actor Oopsie, which brings us to And it's funny to say this, but after last week's amazing round of football, Tom Brady, due to the actions of a certain other quarterback, is the second most hated and rooted against quarterback this season. So congratulations to
the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
You know the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest, but if the greatest of all time is partially the greatest because he's always winning, loses, is he the greatest of all time? So this week, the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady goes to who?
Who? Tom Brady wins the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady. Okay. No, I like it. I like it. All right. It is now time.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
So there's plenty of debate that can be had this week about whether it's the right track for David E. Kelley and the writing staff to go down these more personal interrelationship stories. I think there's a lot of justification or a lot of argument you could make that success he's found on other shows has been partially because those shows were more about that, and this show's more supposed to be about the courtroom, but it feels like they are not as confident in that arena anymore. This week is a great example. We've done some cases that really feel a little redundant. However, Twisty Twist for Mike, I think they were done incredibly competently, and they mixed up the pairings a little bit. And I thought that this episode specifically, the pairing of the personal stuff and the stories was done very well, very well. And so you're very much allowed to do this, but I'm not going to ding the episode so much for its redundancy. I thought the twist was a little, but it was different. It was, well, I don't know if it was different. It was all right. I don't think it affected the outcome, and it doesn't affect where the way we ran the defense so much. I thought it was all right. I was more compelled by the interpersonal stuff than the case, but I thought the case was pretty good. I loved the Claire Wyatt case. Once again, we did this kind of redemption arc with Jimmy. We did it with Jamie, but with Claire, it felt earned still. And I like that they did it with Jimmy because it showed an arc for Jimmy and it showed a circular arc for Jimmy. And I like, despite all of the crap we give David E. Kelley, when he lets the women in the show be strong women, the episodes are the better for it.
Yeah.
And
no question.
I think that we see that trifold this week. We see Lindsay not being hysterical, but being confident, reasoned, and defiant. We get to see Jamie, who was slut-shamed by many men last week.
Yeah.
In open court, in her own friendship, and yet this week she still gets to be bold with her feelings and with both as a lawyer and as a person. She also got to show a little vulnerability, but it wasn't so cutesy girly girl that it was gross. It felt earned, and she was still confident and bold, and she didn't let Eugene off the hook when she called him on his bullshit about him bringing the uncomfortable stuff into the workplace. I really loved sort of the strength of her character. And then same with Claire. She doesn't give up. She didn't do anything underhanded to earn Jimmy's respect. She had exact reason. Yeah, I mean, was it a little bit of like a montage where we kind of had to truncate the legwork, so-and-so? Yes, and I'll let you kind of pick those bones. But as far as the character work, this is one of those episodes where the character work and the acting trump the quibbles I have about just sort of what you can accomplish in 40 minutes of television as far as great stories go, or in-depth. And look, we've just run out of twists. We've just run out of good twists. And so this one, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. But this was one of the most successful character-driven episodes we've had in quite a while. And so I enjoyed it. I'm not going to throw it up there with the best because I don't think there was much meat to even the sort of we take advantage of poor people stuff felt it didn't feel fleshed out. It felt sort of like, let's just pick topics out of a hat. But nonetheless, it not so much so that it felt disrespectful to it. So, look, I think this was a much better episode than we've seen recently. I hope that we can just get past the Bobby Lindsay stuff now because, like we said last week, like I just don't even give a shit no more. I'm so happy with where Lindsay is with it as a character that let's just stop. Let's just stop. I think you could stop now and it would be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All we're missing is Dylan next episode saying, you know what? I need to figure out my shit. I'm moving on. I fear that it's not going to be that simple. So yeah, I liked it. I'm going to give it 7.2 spare tires.
Yeah, you liked this episode more than I did. This episode, I liked some of the things that you liked about it. I liked some of the character work. I liked Lindsay in this episode. But on a whole, it felt like leftovers. Like both of these stories we've seen before. We've seen the twist before. We've seen the story before. We've seen these arguments before. The Claire thing, we've gone through that basic arc with every single character on the show. Jimmy had it. Lindsay had it. Jamie had it. Rebecca had it. We how many times are we going to do that exact same set of beats? And it felt like leftovers. It felt like I ate this last night and it doesn't taste as good the second time around. And the only difference is like we have some new actors playing the same part. It felt very repetitious. The twist, like, come on. Like the, oh my God, it's a black baby twist is like, I mean, come on, do better. So, the performances are always good. And the, if this were a season 2 episode and I hadn't seen all these things before, I'd probably like it more. But, the problem is I have seen all the episodes before. So I'm aware of what you've put on the plate before. I know what we had for dinner last night. And so, and shoehorning Eleanor into that storyline just because you need to have Cameron do something, like it all felt like a writing room that was tired. It felt tired. And because that's sort of what it is. I mean, David E. Kelley at this point was so overextended. He was recycling jokes on multiple different shows, recycling plot points from other shows, recycling plot points in its own show. And it just like it's time for it. Like, I think this show needs a vacation, and David E. Kelley needs a vacation, and needs to come up and update the menu as Gordon Ramsay would have you do. So, was it terrible? No, it wasn't terrible. I just like, all right. So it gets 6.75 tires for me.
That's fair, I think. It's interesting you bring up the flavor stuff because I'm curious about our consistency. When other shows, when we start to rate Star Trek, get introduced, I'm curious because the difference here is like it's not sci-fi, right? In sci-fi, you can do the same plot but like make it different aliens, and it's different. You know what I mean? So I'll be interested to see how much repetition we encounter in a sci-fi universe without dinging it as much.
Well,
or maybe we will.
Sure. Well, with sci-fi, you have such a wider variety of stories that you can tell, and you can go to different worlds and lands and have diseases and time travel and technology and medical stuff. Whereas this, in defense of the show, it's like if you tell any story about one self-contained environment 160 times, like it's gonna get harder and harder to keep those stories fresh. So like it's definitely a high
right. And I think the
degree of
difference between you and I, as far as our watching habits or our tastes per se, is that, you know, you're not as into the will they, won't they, the interpersonal drama. And so what I think the shift the show has made here clearly is that they are using the court now as sort of a backdrop to the relationship and the personal drama stuff happening, and that's less interesting to you. So the redundancy sticks out a little bit more versus where it doesn't bother me as much.
And it happens a lot in long-running shows. I mean, Grey's Anatomy used to be about medicine. You know, it used to be about the medical case of the week, and it abandoned that like season 4. And we're still going. All right, well, let us move forward. Let's take a look at our Easter egg.
Oh, wait. Yeah, you're right. Bang.
Oh, my God. You forgot about the Easter egg.
And where is
everybody's favorite part?
Where do I put it usually?
It's on our 2-shot.
That's okay. That's
no,
HiCoopsy.
That's HiCoopsy. Just going to let it run. Oh, there we are.
I couldn't find the button. Is that's so small. Is that Freud with a baby?
It is not Freud. It is Anton Chekhov. Because
Chekhov's baby.
Chekhov's baby. Because we had a prego. You know the baby's coming out. And I believe I have already used a Chekhov's something joke before, so it's time for... Even my jokes are warmed over leftovers. It felt like it matched.
Reuse. Recycle.
Oh, folks, yeah, here it is. Folks, you have listened to yet another episode of the Out of Practice podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you would like to reach out and talk to us, you can find us at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Out of Practice Podcast. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other service of your choice. We will gratefully welcome you into the jury and read your comments. And you want who else we're grateful to? We are grateful to our founding sponsors who have given us money for reasons. Jorge Navoa, Cloudlover69, Jennifer Masanova, Kari Kuhn. Mike just moves it very fast, so I can't actually read what's on the screen.
I wanted to see if you had it memorized because no one has added their name to that list in quite a while. But if you would like to, you can do so. Very easy to do so. I put show notes in the episode when it drops, and you can click on one of the links. One-time contribution, sustaining membership. Be a friend. We need to pay for that Hulu. Anyway, we also have other shows in the cooker and on the internets. We are getting information from Playmates about their toys, and we're talking about it on the internet. Listen, I know that you wouldn't fire off laser sounds with me for 1,000,000 years, but why don't we jump in a time machine and fast forward 1,000,000 years and fire off some laser sounds?
Mike seduces the audience with laser sounds. Thank you for watching KME Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe.